Hey, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching the Sit Down. Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine is here with us from the Shy. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm great. How are you, DJ? Can you help me understand how you got the name DJ Sixsmith?
Sure. So,
I'm sure you've said it before, but I missed it maybe.
my real name is Daniel, and I'm named after my dad. So I was just DJ as a baby instead of Danny or Daniel, and the name kind of stuck. And then Sixsmith is my real last name, believe it or not.
Wow, that's pretty badass.
Yeah. So it's like an old English surname. It was Shoesmith, Sucksmith, like back in the 16th century. So I'm glad it's Sixsmith, and you got a pretty killer name yourself, man.
Yeah, I'm grateful. My parents named me after this king of Ankole, Ntare, and Guma means be strong, Mbaho means I am, and Mwine means I have God. So a lot to live up to.
Yeah, no, pretty big expectations right there. And pretty big role for you with the Shy with Ronnie. And I got to say, this has been one of my favorite shows. And Ronnie's journey has been just an absolute trip to watch. I can only imagine what it's been like to play. So what has it been like, this whole experience? How would you sum it up so far?
It's like a Greek tragedy, but it's, Chicago South Side tragedy, the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs. And what's incredible is that, I'm discovering it along the way. So, for example, like a big reveal at the end of season 2 was that Ronnie grew up living across the street from the person who was his dad. Mm. But no one ever said it openly, but he knew. And that was, that's a pretty significant insight into a character. But I only found out that about, the latter part of the second season. So there's all these major traumas or major events in this character's life that sort of discovering that I wonder how I'd have played it in retrospect. And what's been great about this season 3 was the first time that the writers actually told me the arc of the story for the season, wow, which actually helped me playing the role in a way different than it had previous seasons. Yeah.
So you've just been rolling blind the first 2 seasons. As we go along, you're learning more and more each and every week. You don't have the full picture. That's insane.
Yeah. I didn't have the full picture at all. And sometimes that's great because you can just, every page, it's like a blank slate. But there's also times where you're like, oh man, I would have done this differently. I would have done this. But that's the nature of episodic TV because, we're creating it on the spot.
I think one of the other great things is that you have the runway to explore all these different things, the past, the present, the future, family, race, culture. What does it mean to you to have this long form episodic runway where you can go into all this different stuff and all the different parts of Ronnie's life as well? It's
really been a dream come true, really, because you often wonder, you often get a shot, like if you do a play, you're just focusing on that one section and, you do it over and over. For a movie, it's a segment. But for working on a TV series for 3 years running, it's like you get to discover something new each time. And it's like an onion getting to discover new layers every time. So I feel like it gets richer over time, more nuanced, hopefully, and sort of sinks in. So it's really, I've never had an experience like this before. And it's been, a dream come true for me in many ways.
What is the most fascinating part to playing Ronnie for you?
I think what's interesting about the character is that, if you look at some of the procedurals, like, the regular cop procedurals, Ronnie would be the kind of character who would be, in the interrogation room for one scene. And then that would be it. You wouldn't see the character again. So we really get to discover the heart and soul of someone who is often seen as on the margins. And even in the show, he's sort of on the margins of the society. He's discarded. He's not well liked. He's killed a kid. Mm-hmm. So trying to find the humanity in all of that, trying to find and being able to wrestle with the struggles that he's wrestling with. I'm sure we all have things in our life that have haunted us, and it's hard to shake them. And that's what's been Ronnie's, Achilles heel. He's had an anchor, several anchors on him weighing him down throughout his life. And so to get to be able to explore that. And it just thinks, I think of things in myself, in my own personal life. There's been some incidents that have happened, and sometimes you just run those things over in your head over and over again, ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm.
And none of these have been as monumental as what Ronnie's gone through in terms of killing a kid or being shot or going to jail or, being wrestling with addiction. But I've seen how it's easy to get in a rut and you keep repeating the same thing over and over. And how to break that cycle is a real challenge. And I think what's exciting about season 3 for me on The Chi is that we see Ronnie start to find like his calling.
Mm.
And I think it'll be a really interesting season for folks to see a new side of Ronnie.
It's amazing when a person or a character can find peace and also they have forgiveness in their life too, because I think a big part of it is like people just are so quick to assume, so quick to judge. They say, why would you do something like that? They don't understand why something's happening. So especially with Ronnie, it's like his military background or his family background. Like understanding the why is a big part here. So what's it like diving into that and just giving people a little bit more light about why certain things are happening and how we can grow from those things as well?
Well, I feel like, for me, the beginning of the first couple of seasons, Ronnie was always his heart was in the right place, but his actions would take him in the wrong direction. So he's always taking one step forward and 2 steps back. And I felt like this season was really different because every step is a step towards his North Star, a step towards finding redemption. And there was a big shift for him at the end of season 2, where he actually gets forgiveness. He gets forgiveness and he seeks, he gives forgiveness as well. And that's another big thing. Sometimes you can carry, anger towards someone, which eats you up. And he had this anger and resentment towards his father for not acknowledging him. And so he forgives him. He also had a huge pain for killing this kid. And his brother, at the end of season 2, forgives him. But what we discovered in season 3, you can forgive someone else, you can be forgiven, but the biggest thing is to forgive oneself. And what happened in the last episode, he is confronted with a pastor and he asks him, have you forgiven yourself? And he realizes he hasn't. And that was like the last of the 3 things I think really needed to happen for him to be able to move forward in a way that he hadn't before.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said. And I feel like Common's character is right at the forefront with a lot of these conversations with Ron. You mentioned the fact that working with Common has been a dream, but like, just take me beyond the set. Like, what has it meant to just get to know that guy and just who he is and what he stands for in life?
Yeah, Common's amazing. I mean, his name, Common. I mean, it's like, he's like the soil. He's just the real deal. And the everyman, he keeps it real. And I just remember he invited me to come and hang out in his dressing room before a scene. We're just shooting shit. And that's rare for someone on that level. Sometimes they just want to have their own space, or, you only interact with them once you're shooting your scene. And even then it could be limited. But he really was an open book. And I'm grateful for that, because for me, a kid from Uganda who grew up in New England, whose life upbringing was completely the opposite from Ronnie's, it was a blessing to be able to have someone from Chicago who knew these characters firsthand to be able to work alongside, to help lift me up whenever I needed help and to guide me. And that's what he did.
What's the biggest thing you've learned about Chicago? Because I think there's one portrayal in the media, and this show clearly demonstrates that there's much more to the city. So what's one thing that you picked up that really blows your mind about the city of Chicago?
One thing that blows my mind, it's resiliency, really. I mean, Chicago has, from the days of, if you look back, it was like Martin Luther King came there and launched, not unsuccessfully launched, tried to launch his civil rights movement in Chicago. If you look at and you see, even from then to Barack Obama, launching his political career in Chicago. And you look at so many greats that have come from Chicago who've persevered against all odds. And for me, Chicago is a story about perseverance. And you look back at Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls to Oprah Winfrey to, Michelle Obama. It's just, there's been so many incredible folks who've come from Chicago. And for me, I just feel grateful to being able to see so many different sides of it through the eyes of the show.
The show has been really important each of its seasons. It feels even more important given the conversations going on right now with racial injustice. What does it mean to you guys to be on TV right now with everything going on after George Floyd and the conversations about Black Lives Mattering? What does it mean to be on TV right now with this show?
Well, we need to have diverse stories representing diverse backgrounds. And what's so great about this show is that it covers a spectrum, just from the kids who actually steal the show. My hat's off to the kids.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And to the middle-aged, the 20s, and then to the old men like myself. So it's really refreshing to be able to see a range of representation on that show. And to be able to have that airing now just feels like, a blessing, because at any other time it might be, it resonates in a way now. It might be different than if it had aired before. So I think, first of all, we're all looking for something to do that's, a release. And I think this is a great show to do that with.
Yeah,
also addressing some of the issues that we're talking about.
Speaking of releases, I know photography is a big thing for you. Have you been diving into it during the quarantine, or have you been putting it on hold for now?
No. I've been working on a documentary about this Ugandan photographer, Chibate Aloysius Salongo, whose work I discovered when my car broke down on a trip in Uganda. And I had promised I was going to keep his work alive and share it far and wide. Unfortunately, he passed away before I was able to do that. But I was lucky enough to get Steven Soderbergh to come on board as an executive producer. And I've now been working on editing footage that I'd previously shot. I've gone back and found the subjects that Chibate, the Ugandan photographer, had photographed.
Wow.
And I've gone back and rephotographed them, like some 30 years later. And this is a project that I'm continuing to work on. We're going to go back and do an exhibit of this work and film the process of creating the exhibit, and that'll be part of this documentary. So that's what I've been working on during this downtime.
Wow, that's really incredible. So that's a part of your journey. How about Blood Diamond? I got to get a Blood Diamond story in here. What is most memorable about that time in your life?
That was my big first feature film.
Yeah.
And we shot, my scenes were in Botswana. Not Botswana, in Mozambique. Yeah, in Maputo, Mozambique. And what a gig. I mean, working on the beach with DiCaprio, it was really great. And that was a really interesting film, because it was, when you talk about art and commerce and trying to create change, that film was pivotal in terms of its effect on the diamond industry. Mm-hmm. And the blood diamonds, and sort of having that industry re-examine itself and the standards and practices that it uses, because they were clearly taking advantage of child labor, of basically slave trade, almost exploiting these folks. And so this film, I was grateful that it was not only just entertaining, but also tackled some tough issues and helped create some change. DJ, what happened to your Ronnie beard?
4 months, I was growing it out, finally decided to shave it. I should have waited one more day because I knew I was talking to you. But now I'll start all over again. I mean, How long? Your Ronnie beard was great, man.
My Ronnie beard was grisly. It was, we'll talk about that the next time when we both grow our out.
Yeah, we'll both look a little different next time. Be well, man, all right?
All right.